Hello everybody, Yuno here, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Ouija boards, and going over 3 stories of people who have used them in their terrifying experiences with the titular spirit contacting board. But before we begin, I'd like to say that if you enjoy the content you see today, please consider leaving a like down below and checking out my other content like this. Without further ado, on to the video. The Ouija board is simple, consisting of only 2 pieces, the board and the planchette. To start the game, players must place their fingers upon the planchette and circle it around the board 3 times before letting it set in the middle. After that, you are to ask questions and the planchette is supposed to move. When you are done, you are meant to say goodbye to the spirit and push the planchette down to the goodbye on the board. Some things you are never meant to do while using the Ouija board is play it alone. Be disrespectful. Never take your hands off the planchette until the game is over, and never use it in a cemetery. My dumbass friends and I thought it'd be fun to convene with the spirits pretty much daily one summer. We'd regularly break out a homemade one to see how goofy we could get. Because it gets too hot to do a damn thing outside during that time of year, we had to find things to keep our 14 to 15-year-old selves entertained in, let's call her, Jennifer's tiny little house in the 90s. Things went from casual and believable, I'm a teenager who died in a house fire, and I'm an old woman who died of natural causes, stuff like that, to disturbing. I have never had a body, but I am able to experience a life down here if you say you accept me. For those, we'd always take our hands off and demand a new spirit. After what was essentially auditioning them, the gang and I managed to settle on a rather gentle entity who went by AJ Duke. AJ said we could talk to him pretty much whenever we wanted. He was 8 years old and didn't want to cross over because he liked watching people go about their lives, and he'd been doing this for hundreds of years. Sounded like BS, but whatever, it was a Ouija board. All of it was kind of bullshit, right? Oof. It was all well and good for about a week or so. He would tell us things about other people in the neighborhood in his usual shitty spelling. And it was always hot tea, haha. We were so polite back and forth with the thank you and you're so adorable. It's cringe in retrospect, I know. And we'd occasionally bring AJ up in jokes and casual banter when we weren't playing. He was kind of like a fourth wheel for a few days there. Then it got weird. AJ revealed that our playing was attracting bad spirits onto the property. He said we shouldn't talk as much anymore, but if we asked for him when we started, he would try to take up the space so they couldn't talk to us. We felt so protected by this little dude, corny as it sounds. AJ was always around and game to talk when we sat back down to gab. Soon, though, we started noticing the damn thing getting faster and stronger. Our arms would feel pulled this way and that, and go to letters faster and with incredibly skillful precision. Increasingly, we'd end up putting the board away because the vibe started to feel super sour in the room. It's gross to say, but the gentle aspect that we liked about this spirit was replaced with wording that was not only better spelled, but sexual and catty in nature. And even though we'd put the fucking thing away once it all got weird, we'd go right back to do it later in the evening or next day. It was a compulsion. One night, Jennifer's older sister stopped by to visit their mom, but decided to hang with us for a while. It was literally the first time she ever did this, and it felt really cool to have someone who was pretty popular in high school kick it with us. When she came into Jennifer's room and saw the Ouija board, she instantly got piqued. We showed her what we usually got up to, and she was skeptical at first. She said, "I'm gonna go in the hall and hold some fingers up. Let's see if the Ouija board can count it." So she does, and one by one, it kept nailing it. You could see the smirk wipe off her face and go into something akin to fear. Then you could see the fear go into a desperate curiosity. She sat down and played with us, getting some gossip about her parents' divorce that we didn't even think to ask about. It didn't take long for the sexual catty stuff to get cranked up. She was looking at us with a face that also felt the air shift when we did our usual bellyache and hands-off ritual over it, though she protested. She thought this was when it gets really interesting. And what did that damn thing suggest we do not 5 minutes after we decide she might be right? It suggested we hold a seance. Guess what gang went along with it because cool big sis got super excited at the idea. So we did. The board told us to get into a circle and hold hands, then call for a spirit to appear. Mind you, the Ouija isn't spelling things out as cleanly. It'd be something like circle, hold, hand, invite, and that's the good spelling. Anyways, we do as instructed. Nothing was happening at first, in spite of Big Sister's insistence that if you're there, show us a sign, on repeat. Still, our big round eyes would look around at one another. I'm not sure if we were hoping something would happen or if we were waiting for another to call it off. Nobody wants to be the ultimate nerd. Though, if we played our cards right, we might be able to hang with her crew as they smoked cigarettes between classes and generally looked beautiful and badass. "If you're there, do something," she commanded. A newspaper clipping taped to my friend's mirror flickered and we all jumped, but she confirmed it was the ceiling fan and said it does that periodically. Whew. There's maybe another minute of Big Sister making demands, and I was certain someone was going to speak up and break the circle. But Big Sis dropped. "If you are here, I give you permission to show yourself." Not a moment after she uttered those words did she leap off her feet and scream while pulling her shirt off. "Get off me!" She was screaming, and Jennifer immediately hopped up and pulled the cord to turn the light back on. Her big sister threw herself back first into the wall as though smashing an invisible something that was on her. I remember a single stream of spit hanging from her mouth as it hung open for a moment. It was just really odd to see a cool person looking decisively not, but I digress. It was fucking terrifying. She spun around and screamed, "What is it?" over and over, and just below her bra strap were 3 scratches, in some places deep enough to draw a bit of blood. We instinctively huddled around her, cloaking her in a protective shield, but had no fucking clue what to do except move that huddle downstairs and into the living room, where her mother was watching TV. She leapt up and took a look at Big Sis's back as we frantically explained. "Y'all, that shit said AJ, in welt and blood. AJ." Her mom made us burn the damn thing. She kept saying, "I told you not to mess with it, I told you!" And in rare fashion, Jennifer didn't utter a word in protest. She just asked advice on the best way to burn it. Strange bonding experience standing in the backyard at night and watching her mother, usually quite sullen and withdrawn those days, put one arm around Big Sis and use the other to continually douse the doomed board with lighter fluid. I never did get to stand outside with the cool kids. If anything, she pretended not to see us even harder. I've played with Ouija boards numerous times with different friend groups and nothing interesting happened. We'd either get no response or it'd spell out random things. This past Thanksgiving, a friend came over and after eating dinner, we wanted to give the Ouija board thing a try. Just a quick note about us for some background context. My friend is an ex-Mormon who doesn't believe in the paranormal, and although I'm open to the idea of paranormal phenomena, I have yet to personally experience anything that'd truly be convincing. Before beginning, we set our intentions to speak with positive spirits only, and we agreed not to do anything obnoxious or weird like making fun of the board, spirits, or asking questions we shouldn't, like when will I die, how will I die, etc. To my surprise, the planchette began moving shortly after we asked our first question, and the connection seemed consistent from there. The atmosphere was relaxed and warm. Among an array of questions, we asked questions about the individual we were communicating with, and we also asked questions about ourselves that we knew the other person wouldn't know, and that the board answered accurately. We were trying to think of some more questions when it started spelling out HELLPME. I know this sounds so cliche, and if I ever write horror stories, I'm absolutely using this in the plot. It's something I couldn't even think of if I tried. The chill environment became a bit eerie following this, and we asked a slight apprehension, "How can we help you?" It responded, Q, U, I, T. My friend looked genuinely nervous and I felt on edge as well. We agreed to listen to the response, but after we asked the final question, we asked if it could share why it wanted us to quit. The first letters were S, H, and I assumed it was going to tell us to shut up, but instead of going to the U, it ended up spelling S, H, A, T, A, N. My friend looked confused and I asked her if she knew what the word meant, and she said she didn't. She doesn't speak Arabic. I told her it could mean Satan in Arabic and explained that it's a classification of the jinn in Islam. If the board meant Satan as in the pitchfork dude, then we both already knew what that meant. Either way, it wasn't good and we kept to our promise to stop after that last question. We made sure to thank the spirit for talking to us and we said goodbye before closing the session. We know about the ideomotor effect and or explanations about connecting with the subconscious, but I think it was particularly eerie that 1. It started responding as we tried to think of more questions. 2. We both thought the board would spell shut up and it went to the SH, but instead it spelled SHATAN. All in all, it was an interesting experience, but perhaps superstitiously, I almost feel like it was a warning for me to not keep messing with Ouija, provided that it truly was something supernatural and not the ideomotor stuff. Don't ever use the Ouija board. This happened to me when I was in high school. I was at my friend's house at the time, who lived in an apartment building. She had a neighbor who lived upstairs and was a few years younger than us, who we hung out with when I visited my friend's apartment. On this specific day, my friend's neighbor mentioned that she had a Ouija board and asked if we wanted to use it with her. We both agreed, as I personally didn't think Ouija boards were actually paranormal and thought it was just a myth. We went into a garage area of the apartment building and put our fingers on the planchette. For the first few hours, nothing really eventful happened. Eventually, we had movement on the planchette and started asking questions to the spirit who would answer us. I forgot who, but someone asked if the spirit was trying to communicate with any of us. Interestingly enough, it spelled out my name. I was skeptical and thought it was one of my friends messing with me, so I asked what its name was. It then spelled out my grandmother's name, who died 6 months before this Ouija board encounter. I started getting a little uncomfortable as my grandmother's name is in another language, and my friends did not know this language, nor have I ever told them what her name was. They wouldn't even know how to spell it either. Weirded out, I asked what my grandmother wanted. She started spelling out U-R-G-R, and then the planchette started going in weird circles and not even going off the board, and was not even spelling out anything that made sense. So I asked for further clarification, and it then just said, "You are great. This will be important later, so keep this in mind." Anyway, I just thought it was just us moving it weirdly, and then said goodbye. A few days later, my grandmother's husband, my grandfather, suddenly passed away. It was unexpected as he was in great health and was right before Christmas, and he was so excited for Christmas. As I was at his funeral, I remember sitting there and thinking about the Ouija board, and that's when it hit me. When the Ouija board, or my grandmother, initially tried to spell out something that started with GR, I realized that grandfather starts with GR, but then the planchette moved around weirdly when my grandmother couldn't spell out the rest of the word, as if something was stopping my grandmother from completing the word and warning me. The next few months was hell, as I started blaming myself and was convinced that I somehow contributed to my grandfather's death by using this board. It got to the point that I became suicidal, and the scary part is, my thoughts felt as if it wasn't me. It felt as if something was trying to lead me into taking my life. As they were very dark, I can't explain it. As it might have been guilt, but I felt like something was watching me all the time, and I felt a strange presence in the next few months after using the board. There is also the fact that the night of when I used the Ouija board, I was in the bathroom and I was underneath some lights. I had a strange feeling and felt that I needed to walk away. Right when I did, the light shattered and would have injured me if I was standing underneath. I would eventually confess to my mother about the Ouija board experience, and right when I did, I felt a giant weight off of my shoulders. The negative and dark thoughts were slowly disappearing, and I started to not feel the dark presence anymore when I overcame these thoughts. However, I was still wondering if the spirit I contacted was even my grandmother. I also wondered if I was imagining this dark presence and the dark thoughts I had. Fast forward, I was at an overnight event at my school, and another friend brought a Ouija board. I decided to use it one more time with this friend and find some answers. At one point, the Ouija board said it was trying to contact me specifically. When we asked who it was, it then started spelling out D-E-V. We started panicking, but then it spelled out a word that I forgot. I dismissed it and thought it was nothing, but my friend decided to look up the word. A few weeks later, she told me that the word meant devil in another language. It was then that it was confirmed to me that it might not have been my grandmother who was contacting me the first time. There is also the fact that there may have been something that was trying to get me, and it did not have good intentions. To this day, I am convinced that the spirit only tried to warn me about my grandfather so that when he passed, I would have felt guilty. By feeling guilty, I was more vulnerable to the spirit's influences, to the point that I would almost take my life. I do not know if this actually happened, but it's the only logical explanation that I have. I hope you guys enjoyed these stories and they convince you to never mess around with Ouija boards. It's just a game. I try my best to handpick some interesting ones. If you could let me know in the comments which story was your favorite, or if you have ever used a Ouija board yourself, I'd be interested in seeing what you guys would have to say. And if you enjoyed the video, it'd be awesome if you left a like below, and hey, maybe even subscribed. If you like the content you've seen today, maybe consider checking out my other content. Here would be a good starting point. And with that out of the way, have a wonderful day.